Welcome to episode number 128 of the Marine Layer podcast. We welcome on Root Sports host Brad Adam. We had to check in on his golf game, see how he was doing this season. We also brainstormed a couple of new ways to market Major League Baseball and still managed to talk some Mariners as well. It's always fun catching up with Brad. We have our two Mariners storylines. We lay out our expectations for Bryan Woo in 2024, and what does this Mariners bullpen do moving forward?
Don't miss any of our content, guys. If you want to make sure you're staying on top of it with these podcasts, if you're listening on the audio side, download the episodes, leave a 5-star review, write a written review, the whole 9 yards. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and make sure to drop us a comment as well. On social media, we're always active. You can check us out on Instagram, on TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling. And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording here Tuesday evening, May 14th. And man, Lyle, it was good to get back out to the ballpark this past weekend. We'll get into our storylines and look at the future a little bit here in a second. But let's start in the past. Good series. Abe did hit a home run.
He did.
Unfortunately, with me in attendance, sitting there watching, I was, as you expected, at a loss for words. I think all I said was, fuck. I think that was it. I think that was all I said. Excuse my language. That's it. That's all I said. So I think we checked. I think I checked everything off the list this past weekend at the ballpark. So we did some good player content. We did some good fan content. And then Abe Toro essentially flipped me off on his way around the bases.
Oh, he knew you were there. I'm surprised.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised you didn't disrupt your whole section when he hit that home run. I'm surprised you weren't screaming and just going full rage mode.
Thankfully, I was sitting right next to my brother at the moment, who I know shares many of the same opinions about Abe Toro as I do. So it's the twin unison thing where we sort of sit there in a dead silence, just cannot believing what is happened on the field in front of us.
Oh, man, I would have done anything to be sitting next to you guys, and you specifically during that moment. That was Mother's Day when we were doing some other stuff. You guys were at the game as a family. But, man, if we had been there at the same time and I watched him leave the yard with you in attendance, I think I might have fell on the floor laughing.
It wasn't funny, Lyle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it would have been funny. Would have been funny, especially because the Mariners were already up and that home run was essentially meaningless. All the more reason I would have fallen on the floor laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're in a great mood just thinking about it.
Oh, and I forgot to mention that Mason Miller didn't even pitch over the weekend, so that was also, maybe baseball-wise not as good, but Mariners-wise was very excellent. So I feel like we checked everything off. Oh, and it was 80 degrees all weekend. Like really, really can't complain.
I'm gonna be honest. I wanted to see Mason Miller pitch. I'm glad the Mariners won the series, but at some point I would have liked to see him pitch in person.
Yeah, that would have been good. But the Mariners won the series, so he didn't get to pitch. So it was good. Let's get into our Mariners storylines, and we can talk about let's go back to the start of the weekend, because this is where the subject of our storylines start. Bryan Woo made his 2024 debut on Friday, pitched 4 1/3 innings against the A's. He left in the 5th inning with tightness in his arm. He wasn't staying loose during the bottom of the 4th inning, the half inning before that. So he came out after throwing 95, 96 throughout the first 4 innings. He comes out and he throws a couple of 86-mile-an-hour fastballs to Cal Raleigh, who noticed it right away, and he got pulled. But Scott Servais says he's okay. He'll pitch today when this episode comes out on Wednesday. So the question that this storyline poses, and I think you're a good person to answer this, Lyle, what are Bryan Woo's expectations in 2024?
In the simplest of terms, they're high. There's a lot of people that believe Bryan Woo's ceiling is higher than Bryce Miller's. Bryce Miller currently sits with a 2.66 earned run average. And when you're doing that, and you're talking about a guy that supposedly has a higher ceiling than Bryce Miller, yes, they're going to be high in terms of expectation. Now, Bryan Woo's not going to throw the amount of innings that Bryce Miller does. He's going to be on much more of a limit. We're going to have to look and see what Bryan Woo's improved on over the offseason, very similar to how we were all waiting to see what Bryce Miller would improve on, and the adjustments have been noticeable from his end, right? With the addition of the really good splitter. Some of his breaking stuff is far, far better than it was a season ago. He's throwing more than 2 pitches. We're going to need to see some of that with Woo here, too, as we're going to dive into more of it. But in the simplest terms, yeah, Bryan Woo's expectations are high. I would think he would tell you that his expectations are high. He's a confident guy. He knows he's a good arm. I think the expectations are going to be he's going to take a big jump this year.
And we know now in Bryce's camp, we know Bryce has executed his pitch as well because he's faced a variety of lineups, a variety of strengths, right versus left, and he's been successful against all of them sans the Texas Rangers. That's going to be, I think, the ultimate, final boss for both of these pitchers based on what we saw last season and based on what we saw in Bryce's one start against the Rangers this year. Shockingly, this would probably be a good week right now for the Mariners to play the Rangers, but they're going to have to wait a little bit to play the Rangers again, who are struggling right now, especially offensively. But Bryce and Bryan have not pitched very well last year or this year against the Texas Rangers, and it would be a good test to see how much their stuff has evolved. But in Bryce's case, Bryce has shown he could execute his stuff. He has executed his splitter to left-handed hitters. They struggle to hit it, and he's overall, outside of just that pitch, executed to lefties who have struggled to hit him this season. That's why I wish we had a little bit more of a sample on Bryan Woo, because it's tough to evaluate if anything really has changed yet. If you want to look at the percentages of what he did in his first start. So Bryan Woo in his first start threw 70% changeups or changeups. No, he didn't throw that many changeups. 70% fastballs combined between his four-seamer and his sinker. Last year, he threw those 2 pitches about 72% of the time combined. So that works out. It's about the same, give or take. The only real difference, which is noticeable, even though he only threw 9 of them, he threw way more changeups than he did on a rate basis last year. The changeup, it has a similar idea of his splitter. Of not his splitter, of Bryce's splitter, of Logan's splitter, of George's splitter against lefties. A pitch that'll go down, a pitch that'll go away from lefties, and a pitch that's a better strikeout pitch against those. And he threw, after throwing it 4% of the time last year, threw it 15% of the time in his first start against the A's overall, and then 20% of the time against lefties. So at least we have one data point that shows strategy-wise, it feels like he's a little more comfortable throwing that pitch this year. Once we get 5, 6, 7, 8 starts in, we'll get a more definitive view. But one start in, that changeup did feel good. Yeah. It did feel good. He didn't get much swing and miss on it, though, which is probably something he's aiming for.
Well, I'll say about your point with the sample size. We're not supposed to have a big sample size on Bryan Woo yet, because the point of the segment is, what do we think he'll do in 2024? After he makes 7, 8 starts, we could do another segment saying, what is our evaluation of Bryan Woo here in 2024? This is the expectation segment. And this is kind of going to be balanced into 2 parts. I know you've intertwined it a little bit, but there's the addition of a pitch and what he does against lefties. And we can break those 2 down separately. I know right now you're kind of going down the avenue of more pitches and use of pitches. So let's stay there. You're right. It seems like, at least through one start, the changeup is the pitch that he is leaning on a little bit heavier. And he's going to have to lean on something a little heavier. Bryan Woo's 2 fastballs are why people think his upside is a frontline starter. Those 2 fastballs are nuts. They're nasty. They combined for a run value of, let's make sure we have this right, 11 last year. 7 on the 4-seamer and a 4 run value on the 2-seamer. Those fastballs play. And guys have a ridiculous time picking it up between the wacky low arm angle he releases from and the crazy fastball ride that comes with it. Those are tough to hit, and the numbers spoke for that last year. But when you look at his other offerings, the changeup, the slider, and the sweeper, those got hit harder last year. So something of those 3 weapons has to take a step forward this year. Through one start, it looks like he may lean more on the changeup, and if he's going to lean more on the changeup, great. Whatever it's going to take to keep hitters a little bit more off balance.
It's going to have to be, though, I would imagine, his changeup and one of his sliders. Bryce like Bryan, has a good fastball. It's a different fastball that comes from a different angle and does different things. But overall, the goal for both of them is to utilize their good fastball, but not to the point where it exposes them. Because when the 2 of them have to throw it too much, then even good pitches can get hit. Because if you see a good pitch enough times, it will get hit because these are big league hitters. So if he can work that changeup in 20% of the time against lefties. Just for comparison, if you're curious. So Bryce throws his splitter 22% of the time against lefties. Logan throws his splitter 11% of the times against lefties. Though Logan has a bit of a deeper arsenal, he substitutes more of that with throwing his cutter in on the fists of lefties and helping get them out. And then George throws his splitter about 14% of the time. So all these guys have pitches they lean on a little bit more against lefties than they would otherwise in just a standard at bat. And that's, I think, where Bryan's going to have to, he's going to have to figure it out. And he said his off-speed stuff got knocked around. Yeah. And it might be figuring out this year which one of his sliders he prefers, whether it be the bullet slider or the sweeper. That's going to be, a telling time. Even if the fastball is the out pitch, you're still going to need one of those pitches that moves away from the hitter to try and be effective.
So my follow-up to that would be, if he's going to figure out which of his two sliders he's going to prefer, off the numbers, the bullet slider fared a little bit better than the sweeper. The sweeper got hit pretty hard last year. Guy slugged 457 against the sweeper. The run value was -5. It could have taken a big jump in the offseason and in spring training. We'll wait and see. We haven't seen enough of a sample to see which he prefers and which works better yet. But just off the numbers in 2023, the bullet sliders seem like it worked a little bit better. They're both going to have to take jumps forward. But yeah, he will probably need one breaking ball.
Right. So I don't know if Bryan Woo's ever going to really add a pitch. I don't feel like he needs to. I think the arsenal sitting what it is good enough, unless he was going to, if he was going to swap. You never say never, right? It's hard to believe now, thinking of a guy like Logan Gilbert's not a primarily fastball pitcher. Like, do you think of Logan as a primary fastball pitcher now, even though when he came up, that was his best pitch? Not really, because he throws so much else. The same can be said for Bryan Woo. If the arm talent really is that, even if he's so gifted from where he releases the baseball, you can't rule it out of the question to think that something else might be more effective when it comes along. It might not be this year because Bryan's still young and he's still going to have a lot of innings under his belt, and he still needs to get a lot of innings under his belt, and he's got a long way to go to get ramped up to the point where George Kirby and Logan Gilbert are right now when it comes to innings and distance and overall just command of a repertoire. We got to just contextualize a little bit. I mean, Bryan Woo only threw 80-something innings in the big leagues last year and just 131 innings total last year, right? So he's going to build on that a little bit this year. But even if he goes 20 innings past that, he's still sitting like 50 innings plus shy of where we expect Castillo. Well, let's throw Castillo out because he's a vet. Logan and George right now this year, when we're talking about the young guys and the guys who are still learning and growing in this rotation. So you're not going to have those 50 innings really of development for Bryan Woo wherever those innings get subbed out this season. So it might take a little longer.
Maybe you won't have to sub him out that much, though, because if he's on a 150 inning limit and he also missed 5 or 6 starts here at the beginning of the year, maybe that essentially does it. Maybe
right.
they jumble around the rotation at the All-Star break a little bit to have him skip a start or something like that. But he may not have to actually go on the Phantom IL or anything like that this year just to skip starts.
Yeah, he might have to. He might not have to. We'll see. We'll see how he holds up. I think that question might be more to Bryce for them both pitching. Like, can they both last for, in Bryan's case, 5 full months, in Bryce's case, 6 full months? Can they do it? Can they keep up the stuff? And can they, when September rolls around, can they execute? Do they still feel that way? And that is the question for both of them. But certainly, even though he essentially got the first month off, that's the question for Bryan Woo.
Miller's more built up than Woo. I think Woo is the bigger question mark there. So we'll see. I do want to highlight the left versus right here, because this is going to be the overarching theme for Bryan Woo all year. And it's the case with Bryce Miller too. There's going to be a cloud hanging over Woo's head all season, which is, can he consistently get lefties out? That's the key. Let me read you these numbers in 2023. Here's what Bryan Woo did against right-handed bats. He put up a 264 FIP, 285 xFIP. He was striking out 10.5 per 9, walking 1.5 per 9, and hitters put up a 495 OPS against Bryan Woo. That's pretty damn good, right? Here's what he did against lefties. 665 FIP, 614 xFIP, 8.3 strikeouts per 9, 5.5 walks per 9. Hitters put up a 928 OPS against Bryan Woo. In simpler terms, all in a nutshell, against righties, he was a Cy Young winner. Against lefties, he wasn't a big leaguer.
Yeah, that's going to be the question. And that's where, when we look at his first start against the A's, that's where we try and find something from what we've seen so far, because something has to be different. And at least in one start, it was like 1 for 8. Right? 1 for 8 against lefties.
Mm-hmm.
The A's stacked lefties in their lineup all weekend against the Mariners' right-handed starters, and the Mariners did perfectly fine against those lefty bats and against, Bryan Woo and, Bryce Miller also, who's been very good against lefties this season, as already mentioned. But the first test against lefties, he did not get crushed.
Mm-hmm. Which is great.
Yeah.
That's a huge step. Again, Woo doesn't have to put up the numbers that he puts up against righties, against lefties. It just has to be manageable. If Bryan Woo's going to be much better against righties in his career because his fastballs are his best pitches, great. That's his strength. You just can't get absolutely lit up against left-handed bats on a consistent basis. He's just got to find a way to neutralize it a little bit. If that 928 OPS that opposing hitters put up against him last year can come down to somewhere in the 700s, let's call it 750, then exactly what we're talking about Bryan Woo's upside being a frontline starter. He becomes a frontline starter if he does that.
So July 1st, Lyle, let's circle back. Let's see let's
Yeah.
see where then we can do a proper evaluation. It'll be 2 full months of starts for Bryan Woo, and we can make a more comfortable assertion whether or not something has changed or not.
Definitely. And I'll wrap up with this because, as I've talked about on this podcast, I love to watch Bryan Woo pitch. He might be my favorite guy in the rotation to watch pitch because the idea of what he can be is really exciting. And everything we just talked about, let's end it with this. His Savant page last year was a ton of red. His xERA was 3.48. This guy, as we've talked about, has 2 fantastic fastballs, is hard to pick up for hitters. There is so much about what he does and the pitch arsenal that he possesses that says he can be awesome. So let's see what he does here in 2024, because truthfully, again, I think his ceiling is very high, and do not be shocked if he ends the year with an ERA in the low 3s. And I'll leave it at that. I genuinely believe that. So before we get to our next storyline, let's take a quick pause. We're going to talk to you about our friends over at Pagacci's Pub 85. Season's in full swing. The Mariners are in first place, guys. What a great time to get out and plan an event with friends to go watch some games. So head over there too. And you can participate in a multitude of activities. You want to go play pool or play darts. You want to just sit and hang out, casually watch the game. You want to intently watch the game. All that. You can head over there to do that. And if you go during happy hour, there's great drink specials. It's 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. So a long-lasting happy hour with $3 domestic beers, $4 Manny's and Blue Moons, $4 Mac and Jacks, $4 Wells, and $4 house wines. All of that is over at Pagacci's Pub 85 in Kirkland. So the bullpen, as we hit our second storyline, it's been a strength the last 3 years. It's been talked about a lot. It's been, for the most part, a strength so far this year. But all of a sudden, with the news that has come out over the last few days, there is some fair reason for concern. Matt Brash, we talked about him as basically a whole storyline on our last show. It's now confirmed, unfortunately, he had Tommy John surgery. I don't think anybody's shocked to hear it. I think we were all expecting I think we were all expecting it. I think we were all hoping he could find some way to avoid it. He didn't. He's going to be out about 12 months. Gregory Santos, this is the one that was a little bit more news, and it's unfortunate. He had a setback in his recovery from this lat strain that he has. Now his timetable has been pushed back from June 1st to, they say, sometime in July. So of this 3-headed monster that we've talked about a ton since Santos was acquired, one of them's done for the year. One of them's missing half the season. So all of that paired with Taylor Saucedo currently on the IL, how do you maneuver and operate this bullpen going forward?
You have to add, period. Like, it's not even an if at this point. At full strength, full health, this bullpen probably doesn't need an addition. But this one does. Like, this one does. Have you seen, did you see the stat brought up today online on Twitter? I can't remember exactly who brought it up, but I thought it pointed out a good point. Are you aware of like the meltdowns versus shutdowns for relievers, right? You come in and you have an outing and it's based on how much win probability you add versus subtract. If you subtract too much, it's a meltdown. If you add enough, in each direction, it's a meltdown or a shutdown. Shutdown's good, meltdown's bad. Do you know the Mariners only have 2 relievers right now who have more shutdowns than meltdowns? Like adding more wins, adding more win probability than they're losing.
Would that be Munoz? And I'm sure he's one. And then
I think it's Munoz and Gabe.
I was going to say it's either Gabe or Thornton.
Yeah, it's Munoz and Gabe. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you just sit here and like think, like within AAA in the big leagues, like who do you trust right now to get 3 outs in that bullpen reliably? It's Munoz, it's Gabe, Trent Thornton mostly. Like Trent's
I would
been
trust
good.
Trent Thornton at this point.
Okay. Yeah. So like Trent's been good. But outside of that, like that's only 3. Ryan Stanek is who we expected to come in and be a significant piece of this bullpen, has struggled. Since April 25th, he has an ERA of 9, 10 hits in 5 innings, not missing bats. He's only got 6 strikeouts in that span. It's not really looking good for him. He's been like a league average arm since he's joined this bullpen this year. And it's disappointing because the stuff is still explosive. He's still throwing really hard. The fastball is going, 98 to 100 miles an hour. And the off-speed stuff looks good, but it's just not being executed very well. And the results overall for him have not been good. If he was a starter and he held up that stuff, then maybe over a long period of time, that stuff would stabilize and he'd end up having a good season. But relievers don't get that luxury. You're either good or you have a few bad outings and it screws the rest of your season. And it sure looks, at least how Ryan Stanek is trending, that might end up happening to him. And it leaves the Mariners in a pretty precarious situation where if they think about it right now, they're going to be leaning a lot in leverage situations on Munoz, Gabe, and Trent Thornton. And just, again, hoping Taylor Saucedo gets back and healthy. And at this point, if you get something from Gregory Santos this season, that's a plus. Because we're at setback number 2 right now. And we don't know if Santos will have another setback once you reach June. And he's trying to progress and it's just not cooperating with him. So they're in a spot right now.
Justin Hollander did say about Santos that since he had that setback, the setback wasn't, it made it sound like that was a couple weeks ago, the setback he had. And since then, they like everything he's been doing. And he's still throwing from about 60 feet. I'm trying to remember if he said 90 or not. The point being, he is throwing. And he's back in Seattle now for whatever it's worth. We tweeted out a video on Monday, just in case you're curious. He's with the team. He's out of Arizona. He's doing all his work now in Seattle. They said he might make some road trips with the team too. So he's with the ball club. That's always a nice plus that he can be around the team. And he seemed like he was in pretty good spirits just watching him on Monday. But yeah, so the nice thing is this isn't an arm issue. And it sounds like from what Hollander said that he's looked great ever since the setback. But yes, like you can't rely on it at this point. You like the hopeful thinking is it's a July return. And I think there's still a chance it's a July return. From the information we have now, if you can get him for the second half, awesome. That would be a huge, essentially addition to the team. But you do with that, even if Santos comes back, you're at the point where you have to find another arm to add to the pen too.
At least one, if
right.
not more than that. And if not more than one, because if Santos comes back, then you have your 3 leverage guys who are, by the way, as good as Trent Thornton has been, it just doesn't offer quite the same upside as what we originally projected for this bullpen. Again, we think Santos will be a leverage arm, but again, we don't know what we're expecting from him this season. He could, after missing all this time, not pitch well because he doesn't get his proper ramp up into the season. Might feel like he's getting rushed back into things. And then, Stanek's been just okay. And then you sit here and you wonder, okay, well, we still have more spots to fill. So Saucedo, again, we're expecting to come back and be healthy and be a contributor. It still leaves you at a point where you can add someone. You can go trade for someone. We've talked about Paul Sewald multiple times if the Diamondbacks don't keep winning games. Relievers are pretty easy to acquire at the deadline. It's not exactly a strapped commodity like starting pitching. The Mariners certainly have the resources to pay. I don't think they'd overpay for a reliever. They know what they can do with arms, but they have the resources to, for the right price, go acquire a bullpen arm. But there was also another idea floated out there that I think you and I both like, that I'll tee up here.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
let's save him.
Okay.
Because we got asked on our live stream on Sunday, who could they go trade for? Now, on the fly, because there's so many relievers out there, it's hard to just on the spot think about names, right? It's one thing to think about a bat or two you could acquire. Relievers are so many. So we floated out a couple ideas like Seawald on the live stream, which, by the way, another shameless plug here. We do go live for our live streams every Sunday night, YouTube, Instagram, to answer your guys' questions. So if you guys have questions, you guys want us to take your questions, come hang out and send them to us on Sunday nights.
7 o'clock Pacific.
7 o'clock Pacific, Instagram and YouTube. So now that we have a little bit more time, and now that we had time to prep for this podcast where we knew this was going to be a topic, I wanted to tee up some ideas both for you and for all of our listeners to think about. We talked about Seawald. Here's a couple others I wrote down because I try to look at teams that are losing and teams that might be forced to sell come July or August.
Is there an Astro on there?
You know, I did think about Bryan Abreu.
Are we just going to do the reverse-aroo of 2021?
Listen, if the Mariners want to trade for Bryan Abreu, I'm not saying no. Here's the problem. He's got either 2.5 or 3.5 years of club control still. I believe he's a free agent in 2027. So he's got a lot of time, and he probably costs a lot.
Isn't Presley an incumbent free agent?
He's been bad.
Wow.
He's had a bad year. So
all you need is 2 good months.
It's true, but he's 35. Again, a lot of the peripherals are going down. Who's to say this is not a failed experiment if they tried to trade for him?
That's fair.
I don't know.
That's fair.
So here's some guys I looked into. I'm just going to throw out the list. Jordan Romano's one. If the Blue Jays are going to keep losing, that could be a guy they look into. He's been a high leverage arm, plenty. I looked at a couple guys from the Nationals. Oh, I will say on Romano, his peripherals aren't great so far this year. Let's see what he looks like here in July. He's getting hit pretty hard right now, but obviously his track record's good. And his ERA is still good for now. It's just some of the expected say, let's keep watching. From the Nationals, there's guys like Hunter Harvey, who's had a really good year. Kyle Finnegan's another. You look at Tanner Scott from the Marlins, right? They're certainly going to be selling. He has gotten his ERA more under control. It's certainly a guy you could check in with. You could look at Andrew Kittredge from the Cardinals, Seattle guy, right? That's somebody they could check in with. I'll throw out one crazy one just for the fun of saying, what could this bullpen be if you add this guy? With a year and a half of club control, would they call about Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals? Who's been awesome.
I like that.
I mean, would it cost a bit? Sure. I don't think it would cost your whole farm system or anything for a year and a half of a reliever. But if you want to just cook up the idea, all of a sudden your 2024 bullpen becomes Munoz, Helsley, Santos, Spire, Sauce. And then your July of 2025 bullpen, if you want to make a run in 2025, which you should with this whole core, becomes Munoz, Helsley, Brash, Santos, Spire, Sauce. I don't know, man. Compared with that rotation, who says you need any offense?
Could we just have like a lot of fun and just say that Mariners should trade back for Edwin Diaz?
Could you
we
imagine
already suggested a Pete Alonso trade. If the Mets are going to trade Pete Alonso, they might as well just trade a reliever too.
The difference is, would the Mariners be willing to take on the $20 million a year that Edwin Diaz?
Absolutely not. But, Jerry will find a way.
Sure. Well, just rehire Brody as the Mets GM, and he'll agree to eat all the money.
Perfect. That works. So they could send Diaz, and then they could throw Lindor in there too.
Yeah. Sure.
Perfect.
Brody will
only one of those owners is worth $35 billion. So it's fine. Stevie can take the bill.
Right. I am serious about the Helsley thing, though. I know we're kind of joking around
and I'm
about
serious
Eddie.
when I say that sounds like a really good idea. These two teams have been linked for a while as trade partners. So why don't they just rip the Band-Aid off and do it for an arm like that? That sounds fun.
That would be sick. If Ryan Helsley was in this bullpen. So maybe that's the one to dream on. Again, I would keep watching Jordan Romano. I would watch Tanner Scott. I think those are two that make a lot of sense. Maybe a couple of those Nationals guys like Harvey could make some sense. Maybe there's a guy that's a little bit lower leverage, but the Mariners like all the expecteds on and some of the underlying numbers on that we're not even thinking about. But if you want to dream on one, again, you can think about Ryan Helsley. Now we can pivot to what we were just alluding to before we were just diving into potential trade pieces. There's somebody in... Well, go ahead.
Well, you can finish your... Go ahead.
Yeah. There's somebody in-house that they could consider here, too. That's what I was going to say.
And so we've talked about Logan Evans potentially being a big league ready arm this year. If you think about it, so he's currently sporting a 1.34 ERA in Double-A. Pretty good. You know, if he gets to July, he's probably not going to hold a 1.3 ERA. As nasty as he is, it's really hard to hold a 1.3 ERA as a starter. But even if this dude is sitting in like the 2.5s with a high strikeout rate and his walks are under control by the time you reach the middle of July, probably you get him a few months in Double-A. And if he's proving that he is clearly too good for Double-A and he continues to dominate, but you don't have room for him in your rotation, and you won't barring injury. And you won't if Emerson Hancock stays in the organization and is your number 6 starter. There is legitimately no path to the big leagues for Logan Evans this year, if all of those things continue this year, unless you put him in the bullpen. If that is one way to get minor leaguers ready for big league batters, is you put them in the bullpen and you let them pitch against big leaguers just in shorter spurts. Is it best for Logan Evans' future as a starter to put him in the bullpen? It's like a wishy-wash. Like, it really depends on the pitcher and what they need to work on. But I don't know if workload is something, and distance in games is something Logan Evans necessarily needs to work on. Not yet, at least. That might be a big league issue for him, but that's a bridge they can cross when they get there. What if Logan Evans is getting close to what the Mariners deem should be his innings limit this year, and he's only got like 3 starts left? What's a way to prolong that? Just put him in the bullpen. Put him in the big league bullpen and let that 90, like that 4-pitch mix throwing as high as 99 help you push for a playoff spot.
Oh, he's got more than 4 pitches. He talked about it with us. Now, he might use 4 more than the others, but if he chooses to, he can throw, 7? Guy's got an arsenal and a half. So let me ask all you fans and listeners this. Would you be interested in adding to the bullpen an arm that throws 99 miles an hour with a deadly slider? I would hope the answer to that is yes. I would be interested in that. And in terms of Logan Evans' development, I think he'd be totally fine. And here's why I say that. Logan Evans' future is not a bullpen arm. When the offseason comes around, the Mariners will tell him, yeah, build back up as a starter, train to be a starter. When you get into spring training, you're going to be a starter. That's all well and good. But you can help us win in 2024. If it's the All-Star break and the Mariners are looking at Logan Evans and saying, this is one of the 10 to 12 best arms in the organization, and we have a chance to win the World Series this year. If we get in with this rotation, we have a chance to make a run. We just need to shore up the bullpen. And you say that arm can help us make a World Series run this year. Yes, you absolutely call him up to be in the bullpen. You know who's done this in the past? The Dodgers. Dustin May, when he was a prospect, was throwing ridiculous 99, 100-mile-an-hour darts with crazy off-speed, but the Dodgers rotation was so deep, they didn't have a spot for him at the time. So they said, listen, Dustin, you're a big league arm. We just don't have room in the rotation. You're going to be put in the bullpen for time being. The Mariners can do the exact same thing here with Logan Evans. And in 2024 specifically, he can be a lights-out reliever that throws gas at the back of the bullpen and help shore things up for the Mariners. That's a real option. Ryan Divish tweeted out the same thing the other day. This is a real possibility. Do not be shocked at all if we see Logan Evans in the big leagues this year, and it could be as a reliever.
I'm sure Logan would be all in on the idea. Just a note, he didn't relieve his final 2 years of college. So he's not he has spent a long time as a starter recently. It's not something you just snap into. Matt Brash himself, starter in the minor leagues, needed to go back down to the minors and throw out of the bullpen before he came up to the big leagues. As good of the stuff as he had, he went down to the minor leagues to work on some things and to specifically throw as a bullpen arm. It might I can't guarantee, as high as we are on Logan Evans and as awesome of a dude as he is, we can't guarantee he'd be good in the we can't guarantee he'd be good in the bullpen. He has amazing stuff, but it is not the same as starting. You gotta be able to land. You don't get a mistake pitch in an outing as a reliever. So if the Mariners deem that he's ready to do that, then we might see him if they don't feel like trading him or whoever else to go get a bullpen arm. It really might come down to that point, right? If they're trading for a Helsley with a year and a half, or really getting like a young reliever, it's hard to see the Mariners overpaying, but if they did, Logan Evans is an incredibly valuable asset that you have in your organization. A starting pitcher whose major league clock has not even started, has all these pitches, and has crazy stuff. It does not get much better than that when it comes to prospects that you could trade.
I don't know if they'd trade him for a bullpen arm. It would have to be somebody crazy to trade him for.
Like I said, can't imagine they'd overpay, but he certainly would be very valuable to other teams if they were able to land him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure other teams are valuing him at this point. Doesn't mean the Mariners would trade him either. So, what does that lead to? We could see Logan Evans in the bullpen. Maybe we'll start to see Logan Evans getting some bullpen outings in Double-A. And I'll tell you what, if he starts throwing out of the bullpen in Arkansas, the Mariners are going to be playing their hand, and that's fine. But if we start to see Logan Evans throwing bullpen outings in Double-A, people that are seeing it in our world are going to say, oh, they're gearing him up to get to the big leagues.
Is this even a card you need to hold close to your chest? I don't think so. Like, that doesn't really change anything.
No, I'm just saying people would start to get the idea of what we're saying may actually happen if we start to see him throwing bullpen outings. I'm not saying the Mariners need to keep the card close. I'm just saying if we begin to see it, we'll know this is a plan they have.
At some point, though, they might not have a choice. They might just have to call him up. Like say if someone else in the bullpen gets hurt, like how much does that speed up the clock? Do you think? Like I think it does.
Yeah.
Unless they're going to go out and trade for someone right now, when the trade market's usually not very active on the 14th, unless you're trading Tyson Miller away after he got DFA'd. But overall, the trade market for quality big leaguers is not robust right now.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly possible, and it's going to be something to watch. Again, come July, I think we'll be circling that idea a lot. The last thing I'll say on this subject is please wrap Andres Munoz in bubble wrap, because they cannot afford to lose that guy. They're already relying on him heavily because the bullpen is down and it's not at full strength. That guy he might be up there in terms of guys you cannot afford to lose at this point. I'm like, am I saying he's more valuable than Julio? Of course not. But what I am saying is you lose Munoz, this bullpen is in big trouble. So I understand that they needed him to get the 4-out save on Monday, but I'm not saying the Mariners are making irrational decisions either. Again, they have way more information on this than we do. I just hope he is managing to stay healthy all year. That's all I'm saying, because they've already lost Brash. Santos isn't going to pitch until the summer. They need Munoz.
Yeah, but do they have a choice? Like all of his outings where he's had to go that long, like he's had to.
Right.
Because you would hope there would be someone else behind him, but there's not. He's it.
Right. I know. So and to be fair, he has not thrown a whole lot of outings in the last week or so. They've been very spaced out, so he may be more built up. I'm just saying more from the perspective of please stay healthy. Just please stay on the field, because the bullpen needs him very badly.
Yeah. He is making a case right now, given the state of this bullpen, that he's like one of the more valuable relievers in baseball. As good as he is, we're going to bring out the subjective value term when we talk about Andres Munoz, because he offers something that not many other guys in baseball do, and he's doing it over distance, and he's doing it with efficiency as well, and we love to see it. And by the way, we haven't even barely mentioned him. He looks really good. Very good. He looks unbelievable.
And he took a little bit of a step back in 23, but as we've talked about over the last now 2 and close to a half years, he's been one of the best relievers in baseball. Like, let's make sure we're not saying this whole value thing in the sense of, oh, where did he come from? No, like we all know he's been one of the best relievers in the game. But now when you talk about how important he is to the bullpen, it just adds that much more emphasis on him being this good.
Yeah. Well, Lyle, it was good getting Brad Adam on the podcast. We got to catch up with him this week, and he was giving me a little bit of crap for eating ice cream in the press box. But you know what? I'm going to let that slide, because Brad Adam, good friend of the podcast, now recurring guest, he hasn't gotten to golf quite as much this year, which I'm a little disappointed in. You'll hear that at the start of the conversation. But it is all really good to catch up with Brad Adam, one of the best in the industry, host on Root Sports. And yeah, we talked about pretty much a lunch pail's worth of stuff in this interview.
We kind of just talked. It sounds like three friends talking, which is the best type of conversation for a podcast. For those who don't get to see it, I do want to just shine a light on something. Brad Adam is loved by everybody. Like he is seriously friends with everybody. Most people obviously see him on TV. TV flips on for the pregame, for the postgame. You see him there. It's very easy to tell he's a likable personality on TV. But then when you see it away from the cameras too, I'm talking he's friends with the players. He's friends with the coaches. He's friends with all the media people. He's friends with the security people. He's friends with the people that work in the media dining area everywhere. Like everybody is friends with Brad Adam. He is a friendly face to everybody around the ballpark, which is super cool. And you'll see it through this conversation. It very, very much comes through. And I just wanted to put some perspective on that because we love talking to him, but everybody loves talking to him for good reason.
And after this conversation, you'll be friends with Brad Adam too. So with that, let's get to our conversation with Brad Adam.
All right. We welcome back on our friend Brad Adam, now recurring guest, pregame, postgame host for the Mariners on Root Sports. Last time we had you on, it's been a little over a year. You talked about a bunch of different Mariners that are really good golfers and guys you've been impressed with. And you rattled off a bunch of names. So now sitting here a little while later, I want to circle back and ask you if you had to pick three, who are the best three golfers on this team that you know of?
First, Lyle, hold on. Has it really been a year?
It's been over a year.
Oh, really? Yeah. So you guys ask me once every year, but which makes sense because I watched you guys at T-Mobile, and like you're getting big time right now. You're getting players, you're getting coaches. I mean, you don't need me anymore. So I'm glad that you still make time for me, fit me in.
I'll put it this
once a year, I guess, is all I get, but that's fine. I'll take
Brad,
it.
I think if Lyle and I were bigger golfers, this would be like a once a month thing. We need to talk more. The problem,
right.
we have so much baseball, but we don't have any real golf guys. You're the golf guy, and if we were golfers, it would be like, we got to at least recap once a month how bad Lyle and I shot at whatever course we're playing.
Gotcha. Okay, so I've got a big ask from you, TJ, in a second. But let's think golfers. With the new guys, let's see. Kirby's still the best player. Brash would be second best, but obviously he's not going to pitch or play either for the rest of the year. I haven't got an update on him in a while. It's been pretty quiet on him, hasn't it?
So we're recording this here on Thursday the 9th. We'll probably put this out on Wednesday. I'm guessing by the time this podcast is out, we'll have an update because Hollander usually gives the updates Friday. So I'm guessing our time tomorrow we'll hear something.
I mean, I'm guessing that he's going to need some type of surgery. Right? I mean, that's the guess. If you can't play catch without with the elbow hurting, something is not right. So, which is a bummer. So he won't be able to play golf for a while. So I'll pass him in the standings, which is kind of bittersweet. Let's see who would be the third guy. I don't know if some of the new relievers. I don't know if Bolton plays or Miller or new Kirby Snead. I don't know if these guys play. I'm still waiting to see Cal play, but he plays every day. So off days he just zombies out, which I get. Oh man, who's my third guy to play with me? Right? I'll take Dylan Moore. His wife was a college golfer in Florida, and he plays with her, and he says that he still really can't beat her, which makes sense, right? I mean, if she's mid-70s still after 2 kids, which is impressive. But he says he'll get close every once in a while. So I'll go Dylan Moore.
I think Lyle loves that last answer right there.
I do.
Yeah. How well has he played for JP? Right? I mean, big hit after big hit, and just play him anywhere, and he just does the job, and he makes plays. It's amazing.
You're preaching to the choir, Brad. I've been a Dylan Moore fan for a long time, so I'm all about that. Yeah, I figured you weren't going to say Logan here. I was going to say, I don't think we've told the story on the podcast, and I don't know if we've talked to you about it, but Logan was telling us a story in spring training, and maybe he's talked to you about it too, that he likes to play golf oftentimes the day before a start because it relaxes him. It's like it's a mental thing for him that he it's kind of a way to get him away from baseball and in a good headspace. And we were asking him, so like, are you pretty good? He's like, no. Like, I like to play, but I'm not any good.
So is that really relaxing then? Does that actually clear your brain? Or by the time you get to the 18th hole, you're just like, you're pissed off and you're ready to throw a baseball as hard as you can?
No, I don't think he turns into Walter on the golf course. I think if you have low expectations and you just know you're not going to do well, I think that's one way to go. And I will say, excuse me, go outside, you're doing yard work, right? You get all this dust and we're fine there, and some grass and some pollen. I will say Emerson Hancock, I think, is pretty good too. So when he comes back, we'll have him in there.
So as like, I could think of myself if I were to golf, like even if I set my expectations on the ground. So first of all, I don't know, what would I shoot? Like a 150. Let's say I shoot a 150 because I don't know the last time I swung I'm dead serious. I don't know the last time I've swung a real golf club on a real golf course with distance and bunkers and. Anyways, it would be a pretty poor sight at, I'd probably need 5 packs of balls just to make it through 18. And even if I set my expectations on the floor, I would, get to the 18th hole and I'd probably chuck my driver past the 18th green because I'd be so pissed off. So, if I think about it, if I were to actually be like a starting pitcher, like that, nothing would make me more motivated to play baseball than that. Me realizing how bad I am at golf.
Oh, there you go. Maybe he uses it to motivate himself. I like that. Hey, and you using 5 packs of balls reminds me of our good buddy Felix, who I don't know if I told you. I mean, at least a dozen balls around. I mean, easy, and not a care in the world. Wouldn't even look for him. Doesn't even care. Just reload. We'd play, and it would be, I would be counting, and it would be like, is Felix going to lose more golf balls or drink more Coors Light? It's like a dozen each. You're like, is that about right? I'm exaggerating a little bit on that, but it was he was a lot of fun to play golf with. And it's cool to see him come up, and still be involved, which is good to see.
I feel like, adult me maybe would be able to balance it out a little bit more if I'm enjoying myself on the golf course a little bit more and I actually want to, spend money on alcohol and do that kind of stuff. Then, then maybe I'm not quite as pissed, but I can't imagine Logan as, a professional athlete at the peak of his game is putting down like, 5 IPAs on the golf course while he's, shooting whatever he's doing.
Yeah. It starts the next day.
Because he wakes up, he's like, oh man,
hey, I tell you,
probably not a good idea.
Yeah. A way to cure yourself of throwing clubs, go buy yourself a good set of clubs. Clubs that you spent your money on and they're good. And it's not their fault if you have a bad shot.
Right.
I haven't thrown my clubs in years since I bought them. It's like, hey, you want to keep them nice and real nice and shiny.
Of course.
No little nicks or anything on them, so you don't throw anymore.
It's not like not throwing my phone or my computer. It's probably a good idea. Probably a good idea.
There you go. Hey, so hold on.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
While you're taking a sip of water, Brad, I will say I play a little bit more than TJ. I probably play once a year. I can probably shoot.
Jeez.
Not a lot. Neither of us play a lot, but I can probably shoot. It's not good, but it's probably like 110 to 120. Okay. Better than TJ could.
Hey, for once a year, it's not bad.
When Lyle and I start making more money on the pod, we'll play more golf.
There you go. Perfect.
There you go. That's our motivation.
Get some golf sponsors so you just go play at the course.
We'll work on it. We'll work on that.
All right, TJ, I got some Oregon State questions. I need some info. Okay, my girls. Now, remember, I have 3 teenage girls. And my oldest just got back from college, freshman year at Arizona. So
we heard a rival school. It's disappointing.
I know. I'm sorry. But they are infatuated with, I'm blanking on his name, second baseman, setting all the, Travis was setting all the records. Yeah. Do you know anything about this guy? Obviously, he's going to be very good. Top 5 pick, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's got great makeup. He doesn't really have a weakness in his game. Like, he's got a good head on his shoulders, all this kind of stuff. Great conversation. And, I mean, motivated, focused. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
like
he's
Roman
an Aussie.
Smith? Okay, yep. I know.
They're good. They're good friends, Brad.
Yeah. He keeps talking
I know.
about...
Like, after his freshman year, if I have the story right, Travis was up staying with Ryan Roland Smith in his house to go train at Driveline that off season. So it's Ryan sort of, trying to keep this Australian baseball community going. And when we had Ryan on a couple months ago, that's what he's explaining. It's like, I'm here doing my part as a guy who's already made it. to pass it on to the next generation. And this kid here at Oregon State certainly has the opportunity to be the best ever.
Yeah.
What drew them to him?
Oh, he's cute.
Oh, well, yeah, he is good looking too.
They don't really care much about the baseball part. I do. And because Roland Smith kept talking him up, but he's legit, right? Like a top 5 pick. Is he going to play second or short?
He could go first overall. He's the second baseman.
Second base. That's crazy to think about that. First overall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was trying to think of a way for the Mariners to somehow get that draft pick, but
I was going to say, is it Cleveland?
Yeah, it is Cleveland. I don't. Yeah, it would be impossible for them to move up and get him. But I'd be like, it would be a perfect fit in their farm system. A second baseman? Are you kidding me?
Right. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
2 years of Polanco and then bring in Travis. Yeah. So they want me to if he works Roland Smith's camps or something, they want me to invite him to dinner, somehow get the girls to meet him. And I'm like, all right, we'll see. But you like him? He's a good kid. So okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah. He gets my stamp of approval.
Okay.
So
thank you.
So he's good. But yeah, I mean, even if he's in Cleveland's system, I wouldn't like that connect. I know that connection's very strong. Those two have.
Yeah.
So
okay.
You should just push them towards Ryan and say, hey, Ryan, here, help me out a little bit.
Yeah.
I do have to ask about your daughter going to the University of Arizona. TJ just said it a second ago, but the two schools in Arizona, one is in the middle of absolutely nowhere with basically nothing to do outside the campus in U of A, and one is in Tempe that's near Phoenix, near Scottsdale. There's pro sports, there's shopping, there's eating. Like, I, of course, no bias in this question in any way whatsoever from the two of us, but how in the world do you look at both of those schools and say, yeah, I want to live in the middle of nowhere?
Well, I think you have to look at it from a father's perspective, and you kind of answered your own question. Tucson, small community, not much around there, quiet.
Golf.
I like it. Golf, good.
Yeah.
Arizona State, Mill Street, big. Lots going on.
They have a bar street in Tucson too.
True, but not quite as big. And the campus is smaller, and it's very walkable and nice. And she got into both, and she visited, and luckily liked Tucson better.
Okay.
And so I was encouraging that because I was a state school guy, and we know how TJ knows state schools. They have a little reputation of being a party school.
Just a little bit.
Just a little. State schools, we take academics somewhat seriously. So from my perspective, I kind of encouraged that, and I'm very glad that she went there. No offense against ASU, right? Sun Devils, good. Our good buddy Willie Bloomquist, head coach of baseball, so like ASU. But yeah, once you guys get older and have kids, especially girls, you'll understand. Keep them away as long as we can.
But you also know, Brad, the pull of growing up in a colder, I guess, weather area and then wanting to go to school in the sunshine. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's it not only is a big cultural thing, getting out of the house and getting out under the umbrella to go live a little bit. I mean, that's Lyle and I are completely different people because we did that. So it's amazing. Even though, again, disappointing choice of school, but in the sun nonetheless.
Right. You understand that.
I will say, I hate to make a point here to back up your case, Brad, but Divish was on the podcast a while back, and he told us a story about how him and his girlfriend were down in Arizona. They went out to Mill Avenue one night for them to go and hang out and see it. They went to one of the more low-key bars, but they're obviously outside walking around. It's early in the school year. It's a Friday or Saturday night, and Divish's girlfriend turns to him and says, my daughter's never going here. And you know what? She says, my son isn't going here either.
Well, it is a double standard. I mean, I probably encourage, if I had a son, encourage him to go there. But yeah, it's exactly. See, they get it. And, so you understand.
Yeah, 100%. Brad, I was curious. We had Divish on the podcast last week. I asked him this question, and I ask you this question as well. If we were to get you on the mini mic and do an interview, what subject are we doing besides golf?
Something that I would know about and could talk about.
Yeah, let's say we're doing a top 5 list of something. What are we doing?
I'd like to think that I've got pretty good knowledge of Taylor Swift, thanks to my daughters.
That would That would do really well, Lyle.
Yeah, it
I've
would.
got, I now my personal genre would be 80s rock. So I think if you had some 80s rock questions or bands or something, I think I would do well with that. Let's see. That's a good question. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I don't have a lot of talents or knowledge of other things, so I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah, so we could do 2 top 5s. We'll do one about golf. We'll pick the subject. I mean, I'm sure you got it. Yeah. You got it nailed down no matter what. And then we'll bring the Swifties onto the podcast channel and sort of channel that energy a little bit more. Was this something that you're just like sitting there watching, like the interest of your kids just just like a wave coming over you, and now by choice or not,
exactly.
That's all you know.
Yeah, she rules the world. It's amazing. We watched the Eras tour. The girls went. We got tickets, which was nice. We've seen the movie multiple times. We listened to everything. Spotify's Taylor Swift.
Did they do the thing where you went to the theater and everyone started singing in the theater during the movie?
I did not have to go to that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Glad. Yeah. Okay, I'm glad you saved yourself from that.
But they did. Yeah.
Okay.
I draw the line there. Yeah, and I think that the new albums that she came out with about the latest breakup she had a couple of years ago, I think are kind of, they're kind of melancholy, a little downbeat. So I don't like them as much as the other ones. Oh, my daughter's giving me thumbs down right now.
That Travis Kelce breakup album, though, is gonna.
Hey,
that one's gonna hit.
It's coming.
That one's gonna be special.
Right?
That
people don't think that's coming. It's gonna. Yeah. Yes. So I'm looking forward to that. Throw in some Mahomes references, Super Bowl stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna be the Super Bowl. Yeah,
it's gonna be good. Yeah, it's coming. Right?
Yeah, it is.
That's what she does. Yeah.
And I'll say, as of recording today, back into the baseball world, like Paul Skeens just got called up for the Pirates.
Ooh, yeah.
I don't know how much you know about his girlfriend, Brad, because she's more okay. Yeah.
Not much.
But she is very famous, obviously. And I can already tell baseball's trying to push them as a whole Taylor Travis narrative for the baseball world. Except I think they got to do a better job marketing if they're serious about that. Because the NFL did a masterclass job marketing those two, where baseball at times could do a better job marketing.
We could argue they need it. They need something like that.
Yeah.
Especially after this whole jersey fiasco. And, you still, first of all, can't take many people to take the league seriously from a marketing perspective. And second of all, it's a league that struggles the most with drawing in young people. Yeah. And that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll be curious to see how they do it. I know it'll be past since this airs, but it's going to be Saturday against the Cubs. And is she going to be there? Are they going to treat her like,
yeah, I think,
you think she's going to be there? They're going to treat her like Taylor and put cameras on her and reaction,
put her in the box,
fans, and put her in the box, and make it a big deal and talk about her. I don't know.
Camera, yes. Maybe? Box, maybe.
I don't know. It's different too because with NFL there's 17. How many games they have now? 17.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to 162, so it's hard to make one game. Even though it's the debut, I get that. So.
But I was going to say, in the case of Skeens, if he's as good as everybody thinks he has a chance to be, because you make 32 starts a year as a pitcher, or roughly 30 starts a year, you can treat it a little bit more like the NFL in that way. If it was a position player, it would get oversaturated. But as a starter, you might get away with it.
Yeah, you guys know, is that a home game or is it Chicago?
Yeah, it's in Pittsburgh. So
that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
But you're right. Hopefully they will market it and do something special about that. Because you've seen other debuts and just don't make a ripple, and you're right. Baseball needs to do better.
Right.
I know many of the Mariners players are happily have a girlfriend or married or whatever, and they're great and like that, and that's fantastic. But the Mariners would extremely benefit from something like that. They're a very good marketing franchise.
Yes,
but something like that again, like our platform, our personal platform on this podcast is to engage with people in around our generation, and something like that would be another way to get more young people engaged in the franchise when there really hasn't been, I would say, that many opportunities in the last 25 years to grab the 34 to 34 to 20, 34 to 18
right
range, right?
Mhm.
So something like that would be great.
Yeah,
It would probably not pull you equal to the Seahawks, but certainly try.
They give you something. Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Okay, since they just wrapped up this series in Minnesota, Brad, the Mariners that being, I
Yes.
do want to ask you, because it's fairly relevant right now. Did you play in that media basketball game in 2017, the infamous one? Were you a part of that?
I was. Yes.
Oof.
At
And-
the what's the home of the Timberwolves? I forget their practice facility. It's fantastic. It's this huge gym. It's got 3 NBA courts. It's magnificent. But
Mhm.
that was one of the worst ideas that we had ever had. You know, our traveling secretary, Jack Mossman, who's awesome, younger guy. This is back. Was it 17? Is that right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So he was. So what's that? 7. So he's barely 30. You know, and we had an off day, and it was, I believe, it was the first road trip. So we're talking April, and it was like 0.
Was that when it got like snow delayed on
Coldest game
opening
ever.
day?
Yeah, coldest ever. We're like, what are we doing? Get a roof or don't come here till May. It was ridiculous.
Oh, do we just want to talk about roofs? We can get to that after.
Yeah, all right.
That's a good idea.
So Jack has the idea, like, hey, we're across the street, you know, let's get a basketball game going. And then, you know, the rest of us middle-aged guys were saying, hey, good idea. But it wasn't, obviously. So it was funny, too, because we started, I think we got to 10. So we started 5-on-5, full court, right? And, like, we go down once, come back once, and we're like, okay, timeout. Let's make a half court. We're not doing full court. This is ridiculous. What are we doing? So we got to half court, and I think we dropped one. So I think we did 4-on-4 half court. And then, gosh, if my memory serves me correct, Sims goes down first. And we thought nobody's guarding him. Top of the key, had the ball. He just went down. You know, sniper got him. And so we were thinking he thought he turned an ankle or something. So he's out. We're like, all right. And then Riz, Rick Riz is playing. Like, what were we thinking? Edgar's playing. Like, what are we doing, right? And Goldsmith, myself, it's like, what? So Sims is out, and then Riz is going for a loose ball. Don't know why. He's going hard for a loose ball and collides with someone and tears, dislocates his bicep. Like, it folds up in his arm. So it's like, what the hell are we doing? So he's out, right? Then it's like, are we going to continue this? Like, what are we doing? And I'm guarding Edgar, right? And I'm like, he's a hitting coach at the time. And I'm like, there's no way I'm getting anywhere near Edgar. So, like, when he drives, he goes up and he comes down and kind of tweaks his knee a little bit. And I'm like, I'm out. I walk off. I'm like, no more. Done. So we stop playing. Riz had to go home because of, I'm pretty sure he had to go home because of his bicep. And Sims, they went to the Twins doctor, and he said, yeah, you ruptured your Achilles, so you have to go home. So they both had to go home. Couldn't even finish the road trip. And it was like this carnage of bodies, you know, on the court. We're just going, my gosh. Those of us who made it out uninjured, it's like, you know, it's still hard for us to talk about it. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What an idea. What an off day.
What an off day.
It's crazy. Oh.
Was Divish playing in that game too, or was he not a part of it?
He wasn't there. No.
Okay. Maybe that's for the best. He feels like an aggressive pickup basketball player.
Yes. Yeah. He said that if we played, because I played a little more than he did, and he said he would just foul me. He said I wouldn't be able to guard him down. He would just elbow me, just maul me. And I'm like, well, I don't need that. What would I do that for? So thanks, bud. No, it was Skip started in the first game. Skip was there. Strength coach James Clifford was there. Me, Sims, Riz, Goldsmith, Gary was there. Gary Hill. And Jack, the traveling secretary, and me. So it was 10. So I mean, I've got most of them down there. So, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
No players are allowed to participate, right? Because it would be no competition.
Right. We played horse. with some players later.
Mm-hmm.
And
Probably,
I tell you,
probably a better idea.
right? Yeah, and some shooting games that D. Gordon had. It was pretty fun. I tell you what, D. Gordon has some game. I mean, he was telling about when he was coming out of high school, getting recruited by Pitino and doing an in-house with him. I can't remember. Pitino was at Louisville at the time. I can't remember, but I was like, really? And he was he was just super quick. He'd bounce easy, threes, range. I mean, he was good. Seager was a good shooter. Seager has a leading scorer in his high school history, leading scorer. So he had a good shot too. Let's see. I think Haniger played. He didn't have a very good shot. I think Ryan Healy was there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't play much basketball. You could tell guys who played in high school and who didn't.
Uh-huh.
So that was fun to do and much safer. And I tell you, word started to get around about the game, and so we tell those guys. And then the next day at the ballpark, guys kept saying, "Hey, what's the update? What's this? What that?" I said, "Yeah, Achilles bicep." They're like, "Oh my God, you guys are insane." I said, "Yeah." So it's fun how the word starts going around and everybody starts having a reaction to it. So yeah.
Just imagine if you had actually played tough defense on Edgar. Maybe Divish wasn't playing in that game. Maybe you would have had to write a story the next day in the Times saying Brad Adam injured future Hall of Famer Edgar Martinez.
Exactly, right? The guy that's going on a try hard guy going at it, in a pickup game. But man, that was
I know.
And any player comp?
Last time I played.
Any player comps for some of the players? Any of the media members?
Player comp like what? Like real
NBA
players?
player comps?
Like NBA players?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, what's your NBA player comp when you're playing?
Oh. Now back when I was playing and in shape, let's see, who's a good heady little point guard? I'd say Mark Price back in the day.
Okay. What about the current version of yourself?
Current version, I could dribble, but I couldn't shoot deep like Steph. See how I go right to the best player in the NBA, one of the best. Yeah. You like that? That's a good question.
Rajon Rondo, so you have some good handles.
Better. Yeah, I could shoot better.
Good passing. Oh, okay. Shooting better than Rondo.
Yeah.
Matthew Dellavedova. Great little gritty.
Yeah,
also an Aussie. You just lacking the accent.
I was yes. Now I'll go with I'll go with SGA, I guess, from Oklahoma City.
Oh,
I like him.
Congrats on the MVP,
game.
Brad.
Yeah, well, should have, right? Should have. Jokic got it. Should have. Yeah, SGA, a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I like that. Player
like
comps, boy, I wouldn't even insult, the guys like that. I mean, little skill, kind of, Lambeer types, a lot of hard fouls. Not a lot of, Rick Mahorn, like, the Pistons in the 80s. Mahorn, Sally, Lambeer, those type of guys. Yeah.
Someone's got Isaiah Thomas, though. They just got to get under someone's skin.
Yeah, that would be, we'll give that to Goldsmith. Just because.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Really? Goldie of everybody would get under someone's skin?
Sure.
Let's just go.
He could talk. He's got good hair,
Okay.
Doesn't want to get his hair messed up while he's playing. Yeah, let's go with that. We'll go with Goldie.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. If we were going to move on to a little bit of baseball talk here, Brad.
Let's do that.
The Mariners come off a series loss to the Twins. This was their first series loss in quite a while now, which is a credit to them. But I don't expect you to have some perfect answer for this, but how are they going to fix the strikeout issue?
Good question. They thought they did, right? Getting rid of the players that struck out the most, but now they're striking out more than they did last year. They had 15 in the last game against the Twins, 51 in the 4 games against Minnesota, reaching double digits in every game. It's a lot of strikeouts, even for them. It's hard not putting the ball in play. It's hard to get consistent and to put up some innings and to get rallies and to get runs. It's just pretty obvious. They've been fortunate to hit some home runs, lately, and that's how they've been able to score and win some games. But you'd like to think that those numbers, would come down. It'll get back to the norm, hopefully, with these guys. Or maybe you just say, that's the game, right? I mean, we're going to try to slug. We got guys that are going to strike out a lot. We know that. But they're going to do some damage as well. The guys that need to be more contact hitter type guys are the Francis, the Polanco's, the guys that, can't strike out as much as they are because they're not, 35 home run guys. You can, like, if Cal strikes out 200 times and he hits 40 homers, great, right? Mm-hmm. Julio, kind of the same thing, right? But these guys have got to put it in play and just, because obviously good things happen when balls are in play. And not able to do that, it hurts them offensively. And it shows how you've seen it just have to be so inconsistent over the top these first 38 or so games. But at some point, I don't know if this continues in your game 100 and you're still leading the league in strikeouts. Maybe just say that's what we are, and try to figure out how to score and deal with that. So the game it's not like it used to be. I know I'm old school, like you guys don't even, more than twice your age, but like, you used to get penalized for striking out. Now you don't. And so it's just a little different, but you like to think that it will improve, or they're just going to have to figure out a way around it. I don't know.
Do strikeouts bother you when, like, looking at a lineup? Are you someone who's okay with the strikeout if the right amount of power is there?
I think so. I mean, you look at Mike Trout over the years. He was the best player in baseball until injuries got him. And I feel terrible. He's out again with a knee injury. I don't know if he's ever going to play a full season. But his strikeout numbers were high. 180, 190, 200 every year. And nobody talks about it because who cares when you're doing what he's doing at the plate, right? Producing and putting up those numbers. Some guys, are just prone to strikeouts. Gino Suarez was a guy who hit 40 homers in Cincinnati, hit over 30 here, and he struck out over 200 times. And you knew that going in. So it wasn't a surprise, right? It is a little, disheartening when you look at the lineup and you're like, well, these 3 or 4 guys, are not, I want to say black holes, but the guys that are going to punch out a lot. And so it's hard to get things going. First and second, no outs. Punch out, ground out. Bases loaded, no outs. Punch out, double play. The strikeouts are the ones that just, stop the rallies and nobody moves. It's just, it's harder to, obviously to get things going offensively, striking out, obviously. But guys who are legitimate threats like Cal, your Julios, your Mitch Haniger, they're going to strike out some, but they're going to make up with the damage. And those guys you're kind of okay with, but kind of like I was saying before, the guys who are more contact guys need to put it in play. They can't strike out like they've been doing. It's just too hard to overcome offensively.
And I think that's kind of how this team has to be built. Like TJ and I have talked about that a lot. The 4 guys they got rid of that had huge strikeout rates last year with Gino, Teo, Kelnick, Mike Ford, those guys all had power. And last year's team was a little bit more built on power than this year's team. And you know all this. This team is more built to put the ball in play and strike out less. The problem is there's still a lot of strikeouts. So strikeouts combined with a team that's not super power oriented, that's not always the greatest combo, right?
No, you're right. And that's kind of what we've seen. I mean, if not for a historic run of 22 games, right, by this starting staff and the bullpen as well. But I mean, if it wasn't for those 22 games of pitching like we've never seen before in the majors, I shudder to think maybe kind of what their record would be. As we talk now, they're 2 games over 500 without the pitching. I think we saw that in the series against the Twins where they lost 3 of 4. They got outpitched. They had 1 quality start out of 4. Castillo's the first game. They lost 3-1. They were fortunate that Cal had the pinch hit grand slam. They were able to put up 10 and come back a couple of times in that one. They were fortunate they finally out-slugged another team and scored and picked up their pitching. But then the last 2 games we saw, Twins pitching just eat them up and strike them out 15 times the last game. It's hard for that offense to put up numbers, and when they don't get a quality start, like they did in the last last 3 games of that series, it's hard for them to win. So I think the pitching staff has certainly covered up a lot of flaws for the offense. So when they don't give up 1 or 2 runs, then it's kind of magnified, right? You see the offense not producing, and other offenses, when they hit the pitching, again, it's hard for the Mariners to come back.
Out of all the spots on this roster that are struggling, is there one that worries you more than the other ones?
That's a good one. I'm still kind of surprised about Polanco and Garver. They're getting it going a little bit here or there, but they're both still well under 200. I'm not worried about them yet, just because they have such track records. Veteran guys, I don't worry about them. They're certainly not going to hit under 200 this year. And the funny stat for me is Julio being on pace for 4 home runs this year, which obviously he's going to hit more than 4. That's just kind of funny to think about now. And I'm worried about. I would like to see, Ty France get going a little bit first. We saw Rayleigh play the last game in Minnesota. He had a couple of hits. Maybe they work him in a little more. I don't know. We'll see what JP is going to be like when he comes back. He wasn't doing a whole lot, before he got hurt. And Lyle's favorite, Dylan Moore, was doing well. And I'd like to see Haniger get going a little bit. He's struggled more than I thought he would in the field. And at the plate, he's been going through, a tough 20-game stretch or so, and hopefully that turns around. So I'd like to see that pick up a little bit, get a little bit more from first base. I think you're ecstatic at what you're getting from third. Love it. And curious to see what you're going to get from left. Canzone comes back. Does Rojas still play out there a little bit? Because you got to start getting some production from the corners.
Yeah, see, could we get to the point where, like, if Polanco's still struggling in the middle of this season, do they give Rojas an opportunity at second? Even with all the resources you just gave up to get Polanco, if we get to June and the performance hasn't picked up and Rojas is doing what he is, it feels like your hands are tied at that point.
Yes, I think you could see him, get a few starts like we're seeing him now, get a few starts in left field. Right. I think it might depend a little bit on how Urias is doing. He hasn't done a whole lot offensively. He had a couple of big home runs, but and he's been fine defensively. I don't know how many times a week you can play him at third, but that's a good point. I mean, I could see Rojas playing maybe some left, playing some third, and playing second here or there. If Polanco
first,
right? If he's hitting,
play first.
Yeah, could
if they still haven't added a first baseman at some point and they need the production there. Who's to say?
I think they'd give Rayleigh a look first. I'm guessing at first base, but you're right. Rojas maybe could play there too. But you're right. If it's June and Polanco's hitting 180, I think that maybe you move things around and see if you can get something going. Maybe give him a little mental break for a few days or something, right? And try to work in some guys. But
sure.
Hopefully, we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
my
level of confidence with Polanco and Garver is still pretty high, and Polanco especially. Like, he's just been way too established in his career to, like you said, Brad, hit like this all year. Yeah, and it's unfortunate the first 6 weeks or so have been like this. But I would be pretty surprised if we're looking at the All-Star break and he's still lingering around where he's at right now. I would think he's going to get hot here at some point. Like, he had a pretty good 10-game stretch about a week or two ago, and then it's cooled off a little bit. So maybe it's kind of ebbs and flows right now.
Yeah, and we've seen that with this offense. I think we're going to see it because it's just like we were talking about the strikeouts and some home runs and guys, underperforming. It's just not going to be a real consistent offense right now. And remember, hitting is hard. It's the hardest thing to do in all the sports is hit. And so when you face good pitchers, like Twins have a good starting staff, they have good relievers too. I mean, it's hard to get things going. And I think the Twins are similar to the Mariners offensively. I just think that they're just hot right now, and they've been able to sustain it. The Mariners have gotten hot, but not like this for 17 games like the Twins. I mean, this is offense has been just impressive to watch. So obviously, I think when the weather heats up, it's going to be better here at home, and I think it's going to be better for the hitters. I think they'll get better. I don't know, and we've seen it last couple of games. I don't think the pitching is going to be able to throw a quality start every game. So that's why the offense has got to be able to put up, like they did the one game against the Twins, put up 10. They're going to have to be able to score, especially on the road against some of these teams. Because you look at the next trip is it's a brutal East Coast trip, right? You got Baltimore, New York, and can't remember the other one. Maybe Cleveland or Miami. I don't know. Anyway, they're going to need to score. You know what I mean? In that series, I mean, 4 against the Yankees in that ballpark, 3 against the Orioles. You're going to need to score, especially on the road. So, heats up. The offense has got to get better. Pitching kind of comes maybe down a little bit, and it's still going to be good enough to win. Obviously, I mean, it's still one of the best staffs in all of baseball. And excited to see Woo added to that staff, see how he'll do. But I think they're still in a really good spot. As we say all this, it's kind of funny to say, you know what? You look at the AL West, they're a game back or whatever it is against Texas, and the pitching is way better, and the bullpen is way better than Texas, right? Offense doesn't compare, but I would take pitching over a season, than the Texas offense, which obviously very good, but can be shut down like the Mariners did, taking 2 or 3 there in Texas. So, and Houston's a mess. Angels are a mess. The A's are a surprise, but come on, right? Yeah. Come on.
Abe Toro starts for the A's. Come on, guys. Come on.
And he's hitting like 280. He's like playing well. It's crazy. So I think it's going to be Texas and Seattle. I think obviously Houston's going to have to play better than what they are now, but man, I don't know if they're going to be able to get back in this race. So Mariners still in a really good spot is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and the Rangers rotate. I mean, the Rangers have so many injuries building up too. So this is another opportunity for the Mariners to capitalize on all this. And not that the Mariners don't have a little bit of an injury bug themselves, but it's not compared to the Rangers. So there is an opportunity here. And with that said, Brad, this is one of the final questions I had for you. Is the theme of all this Mariners talk seems to be how great the pitching's been. The hitting needs to cut down on strikeouts, and that's been the theme for most of the season so far. So all that being said, with the offense being at least for now the weaker link, does this to you feel like a season where being aggressive at the deadline is a good idea?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because a lot of reasons. One, you don't want to say, hey, we had the best staff in baseball. Young guys on the staff making the minimum. And we didn't do enough to capitalize on that, right? So I think there's that aspect of it. I think the aspect of, I think it's going to be a 2-team race with them in Texas. I think you look. I think the Blue Jays are in a lot of trouble. I don't think they're going to be a competition for the postseason like they have been the last couple of years. I think there's some other teams. I think the Mariners are better than some other teams, and the staff certainly is. So I think by adding at the deadline, and it doesn't maybe has to be, a all-star type, MVP type player, but just somebody who gives them a jolt and helps out offensively. I think that's going to be huge. And I think that, if they know if they get to the postseason, that they match up against anybody, right? And you want 3, 4 starters, you want the 5th coming out of the pen. How do you want to do it, right? They are loaded, and nobody wants to face them because it'll be October, be cold again. The pitching just dominates. So I think getting there, like we saw 2 years ago, they played very well against Houston. I know they got swept, but they could have won each game, right? And the pitching was locked, lights out, and it's going to be that way. And so I think add that all up and know that this is their time, right? Take advantage, just get back to the postseason, get in there, and they match up well against anybody, right? And they got a chance to go all the way once they get in, but they got to get in first, obviously.
Last thing for me, Brad, thought I would end on a positive note.
Yes.
Out of all the turns in this rotation, which guy has been your favorite to watch so far?
Ooh, that is a good one. It's fun. Each guy, you're like, different start. You're like,
they're all unique.
Look
they all do something different,
right.
And they all do it really well.
And they're all righties, but you're right. They are unique, which is cool to see. Oh, man. Kirby's start at home, we had 7 shutouts.
Diamondback
12
start.
strikeouts. Yep, his career high 12. That was something else. Logan start. That is a tough one. I might give it to. Let's give it to Logan. His start, not his last start against Minnesota, but the one before that in Houston. The 8-inning 2-hitter. To do it there against that team. I mean, they bunt singles, right? That's all he gave up, just those 2 hits. I think that kind of where and who against was the most dominating, I think, performance. And Kirby's 12 strikeouts probably second. How about you?
I think that Kirby start he had against the Diamondbacks was it might be one of the best starts I've ever seen from a Mariners pitcher.
Yeah.
You have Felix's perfect game. I thought George's start against the Orioles last year on Felix's retirement night is also up there. I mean,
right.
That's why this dude really has a ceiling unlike pretty much anyone else. Even you can argue even in his own rotation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really hard to match the combination of stuff he has. And when he comes out and he got 7 swings and misses on his fastball in the first inning.
Yeah.
It's just boom, 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 hit this, I dare you. And they could not do it. It's it's one of the coolest things really ever. So I would, I know George struggled against the Twins, but so far this season, it's probably, man, it's really hard.
And then Bryce Miller had some
let me scrap everything I actually just said, and let me just say Bryce Miller, because we hadn't already seen it yet. We'd seen good starts, but we hadn't seen him pulling out a Johnny Cueto, wiggling on the mound, and then throwing 96 past somebody.
Yeah.
Where it's okay, Bryce,
hesitation.
Okay, yeah, I like this. And it's sort of resetting the expectations on what we see from him. So I'll go with Bryce.
How about Miller being your 4th starter?
I know.
Right?
And honestly, my favorite guy is probably Bryan Woo to watch pitch of all these guys. And just because of the idea of what he can be, I've read a bunch of articles from very smart pitcher savvy people that have talked about what his arsenal is and how high the ceiling is on him if he can figure everything out. I just both his fastballs are so good that's already such a bread and butter for him that if he just keeps developing some of his other pitches, I think his ceiling's through the roof too. So we're seeing what Bryce Miller's done in year 2. He's stayed, he's neutralized lefties a lot more. Splitter's been awesome. Some of his breaking stuff's gotten better. But then I think Woo, now that he's healthy, can take a similar step to what Bryce has taken. And if that's your 5, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's going to need to figure out, like Miller did. Good point that you had, Lyle, about that splitter. Something to get lefties out. We struggled last year with that. So he's going to figure that out. But you're right. If that's your, 1 through 5, and Hancock waiting in the wings in case something happens. That's what I'm saying. Take advantage of this, right? You're not paying any of these guys except for Castillo. So
that is 90s Braves. That is how else do you describe that?
Yeah, 1 through 5. It's just hard to come up with a rotation. You can get to 3, maybe 4, right? Some teams you think about, but man, 1 through 5, that is just it's awesome to watch. And all righties, so there's not a lot of differentiation.
And all outside of Castillo under the age of 27.
Right. Under control for years. That's why this is the time, right?
Right.
Exciting. Yeah.
Just to your point, again, they have just got to find a way to get into the field, and who knows where it can take them. That's the whole key.
Absolutely.
They've just got to get in.
Yeah, and I will say, too, the bullpen, we're going to have to find – maybe they need to add there, too, at the deadline, because they're going to have to find another leverage guy that they can depend on. Ryan Stanek's done a nice job filling in, but he's sometimes, struggles to get through an inning. So you got Spire, who's been great. Munoz has been great, but you're going to have to find another one, because if Brash is going to be out and Santos is going to be out for who knows how long, I think they're going to need to add one more power arm. But Stanek right now is not, super reliable yet. So I think that's something to watch too.
Here's an idea for you, Brad, before we really wrap this up. TJ and I have floated this out there. So the Mariners traded for Mitch Haniger back this offseason, right? the Diamondbacks keep losing, there's a certain reliever out there that'll have half a year on his contract. He probably wouldn't cost a lot. Do you trade back for Paul Sewald?
Wow. Well, I don't know why not. Right? All he has left is the half year. This is his last year.
Yeah.
Well, we know what he can do. He'd fit right in. He'd love
right
to
in.
Absolutely. Yeah. He could be a 7th, 8th, 9th inning guy. Absolutely.
Yeah, you need a bullpen arm. There's a guy that kind of knows the system a little bit and you can rely on. So and you know how happy that would make this entire region of fans if they did that too.
Yeah, he's a popular dude, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that on air and claim it as my own, obviously.
Go ahead.
And then when it happens, I'll give myself all the credit.
Okay. That's fine.
You know what? We're not big credit seekers out here. We're not one of those people that hops online. It's like, oh, I saw X person say this. Yeah. It's just it's so funny. I happen to notice that we just said that 3 days ago and we didn't get the credit. No, we're not those people. If you say that on air, Brad, TJ and I will be watching from afar, and deep down we'll say, hey, somebody inspired that.
Exactly. You'll know, and that's the important thing.
Exactly.
Good. Guys.
Yeah, always fun, Brad. Thanks as always for hopping on. Always have a blast talking to you, and we'll see you out at the ballpark.
Yeah, I guess we'll do this next year. Is that right?
Next year it is.
Oh, let's make it a point. We'll do this again sooner.
Hey, we'll do it after the draft when Travis gets drafted.
I'm down. Let's do it.
See if we meet him, and then we'll do this maybe before the deadline or after the deadline.
Okay.
We'll do it right after the off season comes around. And Lyle and I, once the off season is upon us, and we have more time on our hands, and we go golfing, and then we'll get back on and discuss how our rounds went.
I like. There you go. Okay, deal. Awesome, dudes. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
We always enjoy talking to Brad Adam. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that conversation. And he is always a friend of this pod. Recurring guest for a reason. We're looking forward to having him on in the future too. So with that, that'll just about wrap up this edition of the Marine Layer podcast. You guys know the drill. You want to listen to the full form podcast, do so wherever you get your audio pods. Download, leave that 5-star review, leave a written review. It all helps us out. If you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe, hit a like on this video, drop us a comment, and then go follow us on social media too. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.